Welcome to The Profitable Web Designer, a podcast for web designers who want to work less and make more money. I'm your host, Shannon Mattern, founder of the Web Designer Academy, where we've helped hundreds of web designers stop undercharging, overworking, and create profitable, sustainable web design businesses. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Profitable Web Designer podcast. Today, I am joined by my friend and founder and CEO of OBM School, Sarah Noked. So, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
You're so welcome. I always love talking with you. We've known each other for several years now. We've been in the online business space together. And I always just love getting to connect with you and talk to you. And every time we talk, not recording it, I wish we had recorded it.
Yeah, I know.
For the podcast.
I know you had so many great ideas, and it's just been really wonderful to look back at both of our collective journeys as entrepreneurs and be like, we're still here. We're still doing that same thing. And I love it.
So good. So can you tell our listeners what is an OBM for those of them listening that are like, OBM school? What's an OBM?
School, what's an OBM? So an online business manager is somebody who steps into a business to support our clients manage bits and pieces of the day-to-day. It could be operational. It could be a project you're managing. It could be team that you're managing, launch management, all kinds of different things. And we really help our clients get out of the day-to-day in their businesses. And as such, you might be wondering, as such, these clients really need to be in a place in their business where they need this kind of managerial support. So a lot of businesses could benefit from the work and kinds of things that we do as online business managers, those managerial leadership pieces. But we really need to be focusing on those businesses that have things to manage, that are making a certain amount of money, and that really are ready to delegate the reins so that our clients can really focus on the things that only they can do in their businesses.
And what is the difference between an OBM and a virtual assistant?
Great question, Shannon. So I really look at virtual assistants these days as more of an industry. And when I look at it like that, I definitely see like an OBM kind of fitting under that umbrella in a way. But on a more sort of black and white perspective, a virtual assistant is somebody who really assists in the implementation of things that need to happen in the business. So with regard to day to day, it could be like scheduling the emails, whereas the OBM is like managing the emails being scheduled. And also, I think that every business needs a virtual assistant. Like we have two on our team, and things need to get done. Things need to happen. So there definitely needs to be implementers on the team, but there also needs to be that higher level implementer that could strategically manage things from a bigger picture. And that's really where the OBM and VA role differ. And then, of course, there's little nuances like the language we use or being in the big picture of the business. Like I find as an OBM, and some of your listeners might really enjoy this, like I knew that I was an OBM because I just was always wanting to know the big picture goals. And it was sort of driving my enthusiasm for working in that business. And as profitable web designers, you may feel the same way. You're doing a lot of different things for your clients, and you probably likely know bits and pieces of the big picture and probably could help with clients with streamlining their systems or helping to take over projects above and beyond development or design.
That's why I love talking to you, having you on the show. You presented at the Simply Profitable Designer Summit because there is such a synergy between web designers and what they need to know about a client's business in order to effectively design not just a website, but an entire like strategy that's going to help that person reach their goals. And the same thing for an OBM. They need to have a level of knowledge about the person that they're working with, the business, the customers, the goals of the business, challenges, opportunities in order to help like co-create the strategy and then like go off and put the team together to implement that. And web designers do something very similar, just their tool is different. And that's why I love talking to you. And I always think there are so many people here listening that are either already acting as an OBM
Mm.
in their clients' businesses or could potentially like add on some OBM services. And I'd love to dig into that in a little bit. But first, I want to go back to your origin story and have our listeners get to know you a little bit better. Like, what was your journey to becoming the CEO of the OBM
Oh,
school? Like,
wow.
what brought you here? I know we're going like way in the
We're
Wayback
going back
Machine.
almost 2 decades here. It's pretty
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, let's go to the Wayback Playback Machine and get on there. So I really started this business because I needed to. I didn't really have a choice. And this sounds so funny when it comes out of my mouth, but I grew up in Canada, grew up in Toronto, and fell in love with an Israeli guy who could not brace the Canadian winters. And he was like, well, if this is going to work, we're going to have to live in Israel. And I was like, oh, wow, that's going to be quite difficult because I don't speak the language. So that's what I say when I said I had to make it work. I really had to make this work because I loved this man. And I was like, I just need the flexibility to work from anywhere. Now, this was back in 2009. And back in 2009, for those developers who are listening, how hot mess this industry was. Like we were using WebEx. It was crazy bananas times. And so I wasn't an OBM when I first started. I was a yes woman. And I was like, I'll just do whatever you need, whatever services I can provide online. And I did that on the side of a corporate job that just needed to kind of make ends meet. And I just sort of stayed stagnant there for about 3 years until I got really clear about my positioning. And that's why I love what you do, Shannon, because there's nothing more powerful than really embracing your positioning. And so when I started to like really deem myself and call myself an OBM, and I was like, you know what? I've got an MBA. I had a landscaping company. Let me just take stock of these transferable skills and make something more tangible, more desirable for premium clients that are going to pay me enough money so I can get myself out of my corporate job. And so that's what happened in 2012 for me. But before then, it was a real hot mess and I wasn't a happy camper. But once I started to really embrace the role and get clear about who the clients are, it just really skyrocketed from there. And before I knew it, I was scaling an agency because living in Israel, you have a lot of English speakers who are looking for this kind of flexible work. So I had no problem finding really qualified people and I started training them. And as I started training them, I started to realize that, oh my God, maybe I'm really good at this training stuff and sort of motivating and inspiring people for what the possibility could be. Because that my whole sort of hook was like, if I can do this from the Middle East in a place where I am not in the same time zone as my clients, I will never meet my clients in person, then nobody has any excuse. I mean, granted, obviously I speak English and I grew up in Canada. And so there were definitely some differences there. But all in all, I was like, if I can do this from here, nobody has any excuses. And so I started to train. And then I started to certify OBMs. And then I just was like, you know what? It's time to build out OBM school. And so we started to build out OBM school. Wow. I think it was, I want to say 2021. I'm like, what year is it? Where are we? Like, how old am I? But it was just such an amazing opportunity to sort of pull it all together and also to just have a place for our community. And the interesting thing about it is it is a lot of OBMs, but it's a lot of service support professionals that don't necessarily quote unquote identify with being an OBM because I always tell people, I'm like, there are a lot of synonyms for being an OBM. You can be a fractional operations person, you can be an integrator, and so on. And also, it's really about the transformation. So, like you were saying, if I go in and I build out somebody's website and I create this whole amazing strategy for them, then I am really such an integral part of their business. Am I a developer at that point? I'm not so sure. Like, am I a strategic developer? And then I'm like, wait a second, I'm the only one who cares. My clients just care about the service and in the case of an OBM, getting the big projects off of their plate so that they can focus on only the things that they can do in their business. And then since I'm already saying this, I just have to say it. There are so many web design agencies that also use OBMs to manage the clients and the workflow and sort of that liaise between the client and just making sure that everything is happening as it should be.
I just love hearing the story of how you, like, when you said WebEx, I was like, oh my gosh, I used
Were you like,
freeconferencecall.com back
oh
in the
God,
day to like have conversations with my clients. And you do forget like how scrappy we had to be
so scrappy.
to like do this.
I actually learned as an OBM, and you guys will appreciate this, I learned HTML. I think it must have been 2010. I was like, I better learn HTML. And I learned it just enough to delete a client's cPanel because I don't know, and then have to build their website back from way back, playback. Now, granted, it was a very simple website, and I work with a developer. I have an excellent developer on my own team as an OBM, and we had to build it from screenshots because that's how shady it was.
Oh my gosh, yes. Everybody listening can relate to that situation. So I also love how you were just like, oh, look what I have been able to create for myself. If I can do this from the Middle East with my, you looked around and you were like, oh, wait, I have this, I have this. The part to me that I want to dig into a little bit more is like you went from being like a yes person, like I'll just do anything, and you were an unhappy camper to really like figuring out what you wanted to offer and how to structure this. What were some of those early challenges that made you think like, okay, there has got to be a better way and I don't have to do it like this? Because I'm imagining that's informed everything that you teach in OBM school. If it's anything like the Web Designer Academy, it is
Oh, yeah,
structured to solve those, like to just prevent those early challenges that you had.
absolutely. And one of the things that immediately pops up in my mind is embracing that I have a business. Because at the beginning, for me, it was just sort of a means to an end. I'm like, I just need to make enough money to support myself. I know you guys can relate to this as back end individuals. I am not a visionary human being. I never wanted to scale OBM school. I mean, none of that was in the pages for me. So when I was just trying to make it work at the beginning, I actually discounted all of my transferable skills. I didn't have a website. I think that really put my best foot forward for many years. I was doing all the wrong things that I think in today's age people can avoid easily because entrepreneurship is more of a thing.
Yeah.
You know, being a service support professional and having access to our free communities and all sort of the resources that we put out there make it very easy for people to start their business. But I think for me, more so, it was really embracing that there's just so much to be had with regard to mindset. So I always look at my people pleasing personality as being really problematic as a service support professional. That being said, I don't think I would be where I am now had I not been that kind of person who was sort of open to trying out all of these different things and really, because this was before like OBM was like a coined phrase. People didn't really know what an OBM was. People still don't know what an OBM is, but then it was really much worse. And so a lot of what we teach inside of OBM school are just the foundational principles of actually just treating your business like a business, which again is hard for us to do because I mean, I didn't set out to create an empire. I set out as a means to an end to be there to give my kids this like stay at home mom feeling, even though that doesn't exist. So I think really having a driving factor like my why and having it be very clear and front and center definitely helped me to get clear. But I'll be completely honest with you, Shannon, like a lot of what I teach in the program are the things that I really screwed up at the beginning, like discounting all of my transferable skills.
Yep.
So not to toot my own horn, but we had a very successful landscaping company in Toronto. I mean, I literally tried everything to get my husband to stay in Canada. So we had a landscaping company for about 3 or 4 years that we ended up selling. And even when I came into the OBM role, I didn't really account for any of those transferable skills. And I managed landscaping teams. I was doing sales with clients. I was like going into people's houses and giving them quotes on landscape design and maintenance for their lawn care. So when I got into the OBM space or the VA space or the whatever freelancer space, I was like, well, this is an entirely new thing. So I can't really take any of those skills with me. And now I really scream it from the rooftop, especially people who are coming from corporate. You have tons of project management skills, like even as caregivers, as parents, as friends, like we have managerial skills. And I think also we just really discount it. And it's a hard pill to swallow in our community because I see like it's almost like the more, I don't know if it's the same for you, but the more talented, quote unquote, an individual is that comes in our community, the more they feel like they need to start at some arbitrary square one.
Yes. Yes. And it's like the thought I hear all the time, it's like, well, I'm self-taught. It's like,
Mm.
okay, so if you went through a course that taught you, you also are self-taught. Like, oh, I'm a self-taught designer, so therefore my skills are less valuable.
Oh,
It's
that's
the same thing
interesting.
as like, oh, I learned all this in corporate, not
Oh,
in
that's so
college.
funny. I think that's interesting because no OBM will say I'm self-taught.
Yeah.
I think it's such a,
But they
that's
they
so
might not look at
interesting.
their
They're just not
corporate
looking at
skill.
anything. They're
Yeah.
like, I don't have any skills. I'm starting at some arbitrary square one. So like myself, I'll be a tech VA or I will be like some kind of administrative assistant because I don't have any transferable skills. And I'm like, it couldn't be further from the truth. So I think when you can really embrace some of those skills that like, I also had an MBA and I'm like, my God. And I think I'm a pretty confident person. Like, I just look back at my journey and I can really relate to those individuals who are sitting there saying to themselves, well, what do I really have to offer somebody? And I'm like, a lot, so much.
I relate to that so much. I was like in an executive role at my company and being like, I can't charge them that much for a website.
Yeah.
Like, it was like I compartmentalized everything that I ever
That's it.
did. I would have never said, you can't pay me this much to be the vice president of this thing. I'd be like, you need to pay me more. But yet over here, I'm like, I can't charge them. Like,
Yeah.
it's
You're like
so
shaking in your
strange.
boots.
Yeah. So I love that you really come from that place of waking people up to their value.
Yeah. That's like the number one thing. And then the number two thing is like treating your business like a business and having a website. So I always say to people, as an OBM, and this is great for those designers and developers listening that are maybe thinking about adding this to their tool belt, is you need a website. You need automation. You need a lot of those things that we like geek out on because that's your storefront.
Yeah.
So if you're building out somebody's storefront, you are a very clear strategist in that person's business. And there's just so much that can come out of that knowing and
Yeah, let's talk more about if you're building out someone's storefront, you're a strategist in their business. Because one of the things we were chatting about before I hit record and we were kind of talking about at the beginning of this is after you have done all of this work to build out their storefront, there are so many more opportunities for ongoing services beyond just website care and maintenance, search engine optimization, conversion, like the typical web designer things that we think of in terms of like, how do I offer ongoing services to my clients once I have been like in the trenches of their business? I've built this thing. Now we're at the end of the project, and my options are website care plans, SEO. I don't want to do that. Like,
mm-hmm.
there's another option on the table that is so valuable
So
that we
valuable.
overlook because we're like, but I'm a web designer.
Mm-hmm. I can't do that. I can't step in there 100%. And I think it's also really important here to mention that one of the things that I teach students, because you were asking me before about what are these like little niblets that I give. And I think one of the biggest things that I have learned as an OBM and that helped me with my mindset and with my ability to strategize and do these things with clients is this notion of a dating project. And I can't think of a better dating project than building somebody's website. So as OBMs, obviously we're not always developers, although there are quite a bit of techie people who come into this space naturally. you might not build their website, but you're helping to build a strategic plan. So if you can help them to build maybe that first iteration of their website, you've already sort of got a feel for like, what's this person like? Do I like working with them? Are they consistent? Do they treat me with respect? Like all the things that make for a fabulous long-term relationship. So it's actually quite interesting to look at a developer who's offering that as, let's say it's a dating project or that first project, not a date. And sometimes a dating project kind of plays it down, but that first project you work on with that client is going to help you understand if you even want to have a long-term relationship with that person. And then if you do, then there's obviously a lot of things that you can build out for them in a 90-day plan that aren't just about website maintenance, but can have more to do with even hiring a VA because you've probably hired on your own team, or helping to map out a project plan because all you do as a developer, as a designer, is create projects for people and utilize your project management skills. And then naturally, if you have that design capability, which I always admire because I have no design prowess, then you're really winning because then you can even lean into some of the more branding stuff. And I think some of the more, dare I say, sexy things about business that kind of like get people all excited, but then without necessarily the other things that come along with that, which is like team hiring and operational stuff. And so there's a lot that you can do just with your natural tenacity as a developer, as a designer, to then go on and have like a very nice long-term retainer with a client where it's not about managing their whole business. So that's, you asked me at the beginning what an OBM does. And I think one of the big fallacies about OBM is that we manage the whole business, right? And I think as freelancers and as developers, you probably know this, that it's impossible really to do that, especially as a contractor, but we manage bits and pieces. So if you can, maybe you take on the content calendar or you take on another different kind of project that's maybe related to design in that person's business. And then you have like a beautiful ongoing relationship.
You know, as you're saying all this, I'm thinking about my own business and how I run the Web Designer Academy. And I am functioning as the OBM in my business. And I wish I wasn't. And someday I won't. And every time I talk to you, I'm like, man, I need to
we have matchmaking. I'm going to find you somebody good.
I like truly, because I'm like, I see so much value in me being like, hey, we're doing this webinar on April 25th. And that's all I need to say.
Yeah.
And there's someone else who does all of the things that I normally do.
Better yet, Shannon, they come to you and they say, hey, we're planning for Q4 2025 because we are ahead of schedule. And here are the promotional dates that we are thinking about. Do you see any conflicts here?
And that's all I have to do.
And then you're like, nope. And then the tasks go in place, the things start moving.
See, yes, this is a whole nother side conversation.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, but I look at I'm thinking of the person on the listening to this, and they're like, pricing and marketing, and how do I find clients for this? And I'm like, I will tell you from where I sit, I cannot create more revenue in my business with the current capacity that I have. And yes, I'm going to have to make some changes if I want to shift out of the day-to-day and really create more capacity to create more revenue to do all of the things that like only I can do. And so when you think about like a business's revenue is capped because they are at capacity, and you can come in and free up their capacity to grow their revenue, that value to that business owner is unlimited, right? Yeah. So it's not about, and web designers hear me when I say this, it's not about, oh, I can only charge this much an hour, or this project is only worth this much, or the going rate for XYZ is this. It's like, what is this business able to create as a result of having whatever it is that you do in the business. And for me, that's how I look at it. That's how I want you all to look at yourselves and the things that you do for your clients. And I'm sure that's the way you look at the value of an OBM to someone's business.
You said it so well. And I love that you used yourself as an example, because one of the things that when I was mentioning how I was spinning my wheels at the beginning, that's what I didn't understand. I didn't really understand this client that is maxed out of time, which is the only quantity you can't get more of. And so when I started to sort of quote unquote work with my ideal client, and that's great because some of you hopefully have experience working with ideal clients, I realized that, oh, they are completely maxed out. And my value isn't in sales, isn't in, like, I affect the bottom line by giving my client back more time. And so I love how you make a point of describing it through your own business, because if you're a new freelancer or you're not quite maxed out with clients yet, you really don't emotionally or intellectually necessarily understand that. I can speak for myself here. I was clueless because I had all this time and I was like bootstrapping HTML and I have 800 hours in a day. Like, why don't these people have all their time in the day? What's wrong with them? And I'm like, oh, they have all these different things they're scaling and all these different things that really do require a babysitter is the word that comes to my mind. I'm going to say it like it is. It's like you have to sort of babysit aspects of the business so that the client can be like, oh, so happy that that's being taken care of. I have full peace of mind, like a promotional calendar, like we were saying. Like on my team, it's Toby. I'm like, Toby's responsible for that. And I don't have to necessarily worry about like the dates for the Q5 or Q5 dates for Q4, whatever. I just leave it to her and she puts it in place because she knows she's very clear on the strategy. She's very clear on the big picture and she's very clear on the goals in the business. And I think that's the other really big caveat about being an OBM and what some of your developers might really resonate with is that you have to really know the goals and you have to know the vision. And you might not now at the beginning, and you might understand that through working with a client, but it's that level of an understanding of the big picture that really helps to drive the decision making and the project management and the things that really do give your client peace of mind. It really is a beautiful thing.
I think about this conversation we were having in our next level mastermind yesterday. So, our next level mastermind is women web designers who really have like hit that invisible revenue ceiling. Their capacity is at max. The way we teach our pricing strategy in the Web Designer Academy, we teach you to like pull some levers on your pricing to create some more money and capacity. But also, then you hit a point again where if you're the only one on your team, you're going to hit this ceiling again unless you have some support. And we were having this conversation yesterday. Literally, 5 people were like, my biggest pain point right now is that I need more hours in the day. And it's not like they're scatterbrained. These are like super, super high achieving women who they have it all under control, right? They've got their finger on everything. They know everything that's going on. They're doing all the things and they just need more hours. They say, I just need more hours in the day to get it all done, or I need to be more focused.
Yeah, God.
But
I need to be more focused.
Never enters into the conversation is like, maybe you don't have to be the one to even think about it. And then the other thing is like, I need to add to my team. I need to add a virtual assistant. But when would I find the time to train them and download my brain into them? They want to clone themselves to create more time.
Well, unfortunately, that is the typical entrepreneur that I will lovingly say is in reactionary mode now and has waited too long to hire.
Yep.
And I definitely know that feeling, and it's not a very good feeling and it's problematic. So my very first OBM client was very similar. I mean, she wasn't in the developing space, but she was so beyond capacity and needed to hire a VA like eons ago. And so when I came on her team, that was one of the first things we did. We streamlined the system, hired the VA. So if you are at a place where you are really don't have the bandwidth to hire the VA, it's actually quite common. you bring on an OBM and the OBM hires the VA and they work together for like a 90-day period. And then usually the VA stays, or maybe the business is in a financial place where they can keep on the OBM to keep scaling and so on. So there are definitely avenues where an OBM can come in for a period of time to help a business scale like that. But yeah, it's very disheartening when you are like, I'm ready to delegate now, but my goodness, I don't have any bandwidth to do that. And it's so, so, so common.
I remember having a business coach tell me personally, like, sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's just like the worst thing you could tell me. Like, I have to slow down, you know?
Yeah.
But I think it's true in the case of, I think of it as like you're driving your car up a hill and you're staying in fifth gear and you're just trying to get up this hill in fifth gear and you're never downshifting. And so you're just like burning the engine out because you aren't doing anything you're just like,
Yeah.
oh,
And
if I
you
just
are
give
the
it more
engine.
gas,
And you are the engine that
you're
you're
the
burning
engine. You're like,
out.
oh, let me just give it more gas.
Yeah.
What happens? You get stuck. You don't
Yeah.
go any farther up the hill. You just end up destroying your engine. And so everything you're saying about this role on the right team, like for the right person at the right time, can be that shift that you need to create what you're really here to create. Because none of us are here to work 12 hours a
No, we
day,
are definitely
7 days a
not.
week.
No, no, no. And I think that's why you have to really have a strong why. It's one of the big things that I really kind of harp about. And I know it's the same on your end, but like, it's not easy being an entrepreneur. It's not easy growing your leadership in this way. I know that even myself at the beginning of my journey, like I was like team management, like even as an OBM, I was like, I'm like, so not a people person. I'm not going to be a great team manager. I didn't have any experience. I mean, yes, I had my landscaping company, but I was telling myself, I don't have any experience managing team like a crazy person. So it's very, very hard. And if you don't have a good enough why, you'll either stay in that kind of role of doing all the things yourself, or you will push through. And like you're saying, slow down a little bit to speed up. And I think it is very frustrating because you're finally like making movement in your business. And now you're like, you feel like things have been so slow. Now they're picking up. Now I have to slow down more to speed up again. But it is the way it is.
Yeah. And I think it's worth it because what's the alternative, right?
Yeah.
The
Burning yourself
alternative
out.
is you physically burn yourself out. Like, we're not meant to sustain that level of work. And also, if you went into business for yourself, for freedom, for flexibility, for financial independence, and you find yourself trapped by
Mm-hmm.
how
The
you run your
job you've created
business,
for yourself.
yeah, that's not okay. That's not what we're here
Mm-hmm.
for. And so that's why I love talking to you about this, because I do think it is, I know it's a missing piece for my business.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it as a missing piece for a lot of the high achieving women web designers that I talk to who just keep working harder to get freedom. And then they're stressed out. And I'm like, we need to shift this because working more is not getting you closer to
Yeah.
what you want.
Or getting another client. It's more to manage, right?
Yeah.
Eventually it becomes too much.
Yeah. So good. So, what are some of the opportunities you see right now? It's 2025. I know you started OBM school in whatever 2020.
Yeah.
Things have changed. It was
Yeah.
from 2020 to 2025. What are some of the, I guess, shifts that you've seen in the landscape and opportunities you see for people in the OBM industry right now?
Yeah. I mean, obviously AI is on the scene and I've fully embraced
Oh,
AI in our business and in the way we do things. And I think that's been quite of a big change because it can really make our lives easier as OBMs when it comes to creating strategic plans or extracting notes or extracting action items from things or composing emails. Like, so there's all of that. But then there's also this whole entrepreneurial scene that's just exploding. And I think for me, it's such an amazing time to be an OBM because we have all these like service as a software, like SaaS products out there that make running businesses easier, but then more complicated and in need of having a manager to come and make sure that all of those integrations are working. And we're tracking key performance indicators to make sure that, oh, that website page isn't down, right? The funnel's still working and all that good stuff. So I think that it's just been more and more fun and I would say dynamic being an OBM. It can be overwhelming because there's all of that tech. And then the biggest thing for me would be, and this takes me back to that whole dating project thing, is there's a lot of sketchy businesses coming on the scene. And so you have to really be able to discern who are the people that you want to work with and who are the people that you don't want to be working with. And I think that really comes down to having a good dating project, like a website built, right? And then you're like, oh, you're a wonderful human being, or you know what, this isn't going to work. But I think it's just becoming more and more of a thing for people to use remote support. And I think that's great. And I don't think that will ever change anytime soon for us. And I'm really interested to see where AI will head and how it will make our lives easier. And then also in need of still somebody to manage the pieces, right?
Yeah. Well, one, the dating project. I love that you call it a dating project. We talk about it similarly. We call it paid discovery
Mm,
in the Web
yes.
Designer Academy, but I never really I haven't thought of it as like a dating project, although I do talk about it as like, oh, this is one of the benefits of it is
Yeah,
that
because
if
you're
at the
probably
end,
you're probably not expecting something long term, right? You're just like, oh, wham, bam, I'm going to get in there and set up your thing. And then when we do the ongoing stuff, it will be like I'm not going to need to have strategy calls with you every week or every month, right? It's just business as usual.
yeah. And I think of like paid discovery as like, let me get to know enough about you to like I'm going to get paid to give you a proposal,
Right.
you know,
Absolutely. That's a
for
big part of
this.
OBM school as well. Amen.
And then after going through this process to get enough information to like give you a strategy, if you are terrible and I don't want to work with you, I'm going to decline to make an offer
Right.
at the end. I'll be like, here's everything. Like, here's your strategy. Here's the plan. You paid for this, and I'm going to decline to give you an offer to work together.
Yeah. And maybe there's like suggestions. I will imagine that there's starting a website from scratch probably means that business is in a startup mode and needs a VA. And then maybe the overhaul or the revamp of a website is more of a OBM. And also too, it's like if you're revamping someone's website and they're investing, like one of my best clients at the very beginning of my OBM relationship that sent me clients I loved was a branding expert. They were getting high quality. So I imagine you have people listening right now that are like, I've got some really great clients that are making good money and need managerial support in their business. And so, yes, just like you were saying, you have that initial web design project or overhaul project, and then you can really discern if they are normal or not.
Right.
Isn't that what it all comes down to these days?
Red flags
Red
or
flags.
green flags. Oh my gosh. So, just kind of thinking about our audience of web designers, developers, we also have people that listen to this podcast who are neither of those, but just love that we talk about packaging, pricing, marketing, boundaries,
Yes.
mindset, all of that stuff. Who are a few of the different like avatars that you see
Mm.
that could either add OBM services to what they're doing, or maybe hire an OBM, or even maybe like pivot into OBM services?
Absolutely. So I would imagine that the avatar that would pivot into OBM services would be maybe looking for some ongoing retainer revenue and because I also have OBMs in our community that are very project based. They're like, I don't want to commit to anybody. They do things like launch management. But I think for your ideal avatar, it would be a developer or a designer who understands that They have the talent. I really believe it's such a talent to be able to build and design these things, but then really has that need to sort of stay ongoing in the background, maybe because we are, I mean, I think of myself as the avatar. Like, I'm a behind the scenes person through and through. Like, just give me my pajamas and some quiet. I don't want to see you in person. All good. I really think that the avatar is, there are so many different types, but if you are already working as a service support professional and you have the proof of concept, like I call it losing your client virginity, like you can get clients, you're hardworking, and it's just about you deciding that, hey, maybe I'm going to keep one or two clients ongoing so that I don't have to freak out every month when I don't have enough projects or when it's the holidays and people aren't calling me. And then also sometimes through those clients, you get other word of mouth clients in that way. So I think it's fair game for anybody to step into this space truly. But you have to really want to be in the big picture. Because I know I always compare it to like the VA to OBM. There's a lot of VAs that just want to implement. They don't want the responsibility or the accountability of having to like be sort of partnering with their clients in that way. They want to just sort of be delegated to and do all the things. So, and I just, with all the developers that I've worked with, and we have one on our team right now, like he's very big picture. And actually he helps us, like he's very much of a strategic role in my business naturally, because I force everybody to be OBMs all in all. But he's really knows what's going on in my business because we have these conversations about call to action buttons and what is the real purpose of this. And then there's that whole sort of space of, like you were saying about yourself, Shannon, with your business and other developers who have reached that invisible ceiling of no more revenue for you. They need an OBM. They need an OBM to help them figure out what they can do to, because it's like I always use, I haven't said this for a while, but I usually say it on the daily, but you can't see the label from inside the bottle.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need somebody who can come in as a third party and look at your business and look at your strengths and weaknesses from the outside and say, hey, you need an OBM that can complement X, Y, and Z, because it's different for everybody. You know, what I need in my business is not going to be the same as what you need in your business, because I'm me and you are you. And so I think that's the other piece, is just recognizing that we're all very unique individuals. We've all built our businesses online in different, unique, and loving ways. And as such, you need to have somebody that you can really partner with, to trust, to be there so that you can actually go on holiday, right? And do the things that are going to fill you up so that you can stay motivated about what you're doing in your business, right? Because that's the other thing. You know, if you're not a happy camper in your business, then you're going to have to go back to your corporate 9 to 5. And there's nothing more frightening to me than that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I had a moment 2 years ago where I thought I was going to go back to corporate, work with my
Wow.
sister. I love my sister, loved working with her when we worked together. She had me like so sold on like how awesome this company that she works for
Oh,
and
wow.
how flexible and all of the things. And when it came right down to it, I was like, I can't. Like,
Yeah.
I know you think it's amazing, and I'm sure it is for corporate, but it's still corporate.
Yeah.
It is still corporate. And I decided to choose the hard of weathering the challenging year than to go back to that. And I'm so, so,
Oh, my
so glad I
goodness.
did,
I'm so
because
glad you didn't do that.
oh my gosh. But like the value of what I learned by making the decision not to, I'm helping other people. We all go through challenging times in our business. There's just
100%.
not going to
And
be,
if you're not going through challenging times, then you might not be pushing yourself to your best.
yeah, absolutely. And something you said earlier, you're like, we do OBM matchmaking. And then you just said something about like, you can't see the label from
Inside the
inside of
bottle.
the bottle. And I think that you are really speaking to a challenge that I have had personally, where I've tried to hire for probably an OBM role several different times. And I am not choosing, I'm not structuring the role correctly
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know what I don't know about what I really need.
Yes.
I'm trying to
And in
clone
your defense,
myself.
in your defense, it is a very particular onboarding that I think a lot of regular freelancers aren't really yet keen on, especially if they're new. Like, so for me, it took me about 3 years to realize, oh, it's a certain onboarding. It's a certain client. I'm partnering, I'm serving them more as a partnership role. So I think one of the things that I'm definitely going to hit you up on, it's going to happen because I love what you're doing. And I think it's so important to find my students' work. And so I'm definitely we'll have to speak about this after, but I think that it was probably also just a result of, I mean, we are control freaks as entrepreneurs, and you love your business and you know it inside out. And so sometimes we don't necessarily give the reins to that OBM, or they're not experienced enough with the onboarding to really fully understand what are the goals, what's the vision, what's happening here, how are we mapping this out so that I can give my client peace of mind knowing that I'm really in the know. Because I think a lot of the times when you start working with an OBM type role and they maybe aren't as experienced or don't really have that prowess around onboarding, it's sort of that VA relationship where you just sort of start dumping tasks on them. And then before you know it, they're like knee deep. You're aggravated because it's so much more work on your plate. And the relationship sort of just dissolves and everybody feels bad. And I've been in that role. I've been in that spot. I've seen my students in that spot before. And when push comes to shove, it's like a particular onboarding that really helps, and a pace as well that really helps you and the OBM figure it all out in a way that just works for you to have that peace of mind. That's what it's all about, and that trust. It's hard.
I feel like it's so interesting because I've explored this on the podcast, and I'm in our next level mastermind with our next level web designers, like figuring out how do we get in our own way, right? Like,
Yeah.
where do we have our foot on the gas and the brake at the same time? And what is that
Oh my
like
God, so
thing?
true. So true.
What is that like subconscious thing that we're believing about the world that is keeping us stuck?
Yeah.
And so what came up for me was I don't like to ask for help because I'm afraid to give feedback if I don't like something or I want something different, because I fear damaging the relationship. And so therefore, I will happily delegate and train you, but then I'll be like, oh, I'll just take this back, or they did it to this point, but I don't like what they did here. So instead of having the uncomfortable for me conversation of, hey, can you change this? Because that feels like they're not going to like me. I'm going to lose like safety, security, my reputation. I have this other thing where I'm like, oh, I teach web designers how to deal with difficult clients. I never want to be a difficult client. And I have somehow equated feedback with being a difficult client and twisted that all up in my mind.
Oh,
So
wow.
instead, I'm going to just disempower you, do your work before you can do it, not give you everything that you need to do your job well. And somehow these roles never work out
Yeah.
because I'm just like, I
Yeah.
can't let someone else do their job. So the best thing that I ever discovered was that I do that. And I have to,
Knowing is half the battle, as
oh my
G.I. Joe
goodness.
says.
It is so uncomfortable
It is so
to
uncomfortable.
say, but it's only uncomfortable for me. The other person
Well,
is like, please tell me the things that I need to be successful in this role. And I'm being dishonest.
for me, that's a real green flag. That's a real green flag as from a client perspective, because you have accountability in your business and in the way that you manage. And this is why I can teach all the hard skills up the wahoo, but the soft skills of leadership, having uncomfortable conversations, having that level of emotional intelligence where you can empathize and also being proactive is where you can mitigate some of those things. Because obviously, I mean, I think it's pretty natural to feel like that. And when you have the right OBM, they are going to be on the lookout for those behaviors. And also we'll have measures in place so that hopefully, I mean, obviously nothing is perfect, but hopefully we can sort of mitigate it before it gets too out of hand, right?
Yeah. So good. Oh my gosh. I
So
have enjoyed
good,
this
Shannon.
conversation with you, like
Me
selfishly.
too.
And I hope everybody else listening can just really see the value of adding these services to their business or adding an OBM to their business. So, where can everybody go to learn more about the OBM school and what you do
Yes.
and how you can support them and all of the things?
Well, we have an amazing little ditty for you guys over at obmschool.com/web designer. That is our OBM starter kit for you guys for the profitable web designer community. So we've made that available to you guys. I'm hanging around. You can always find me on social or at obmschool.com. And I think that resource will really help you to see if OBM is something that you want to add to your tool belt as a service support professional.
Amazing. And what about people who are like, I need to add an OBM to my team?
Ooh, yeah. So if you need to add an OBM to your team, you can head on over to sarah.noked.com/questionnaire. So Sarah Noked is where my agency runs, powered by accredited OBMs. And so matchmaking is one of the things that it makes me feel like I'm able to give back and do a full circle with my students. So yeah, at sarah.noked.com is where all that matchmaking fun happens.
Amazing. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. It's always a
Thank you,
pleasure
Shannon.
to talk to you.
It always is. And I will be following up with you to matchmake somebody with you if you're down.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And y'all will get to hear about that on my income reports where I share the behind the scenes of the business and talk about like what's going on. And so, yeah, I'm excited to have that conversation with you too. So, thanks everyone so much for listening. And we'll
Thanks,
see you back here
Shannon.
next week. Bye. Hey, so before you go, quick question for you. Have you been listening to the podcast for a while and are curious if the Web Designer Academy is right for you? If that sounds like you, request an invitation to our next open house where you'll get to attend our next live strategy call and then take a tour of the program with me and get all of your questions answered. All you got to do to get your invitation is go to webdesigneracademy.com/open house, fill out a quick form telling me more about your web design business and your goals. And if it looks like I can help, I'll send you a link to join us at our next open house. Zero pressure. Zero commitment, just a chance for you to check it out and see if it's the right fit. To get the date and time of our next open house and request your invitation, just go to webdesigneracademy.com/open house. That's webdesigneracademy.com/open house.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.